I don't do it when I first think of it. So we are recording, so we'll start in just a minute. Oh, it's so nice to see everybody's faces. Joanne, you're sideways, but you still look good. There we go. Whoops. There, that's good. Hello, Rebecca. Welcome. All right. Let's see. Probably about another 30 seconds, and then I will start chatting with you all. Okay. It is now 7 p.m. here in Paris. I want to welcome you to this call all about liftoff. And I will be chatting with you for an hour. I've reserved an hour for this call. And I don't want to do all the talking. So I want you to know that there will be time for questions and answers and discussion. I will spend a little bit of time here at the beginning kind of setting the stage for what we'll be chatting about. And then I'll open it up to you guys for comments and questions. And I have to tell you, I have been looking forward to this call ever since I decided to set it up, because I have had such a wonderful experience with people in the current liftoff program and seeing some things that have happened for them, and also some things that have happened for me while leading this program, that I really wanted to bring you guys together and share some of the things that I've seen, and hopefully that will help you in your own life if you have some area or areas where you'd like to see some change and transformation and some liftoff, and you're feeling kind of stuck. And so let me just tell you a little bit about where we are. So we are just about to start week 6 of that program. So we've had 5 weeks together. And I have to be honest with you about something, which is that when I first put this program together, I really didn't know if it was going to work. You know, it's one of these things where you have an idea for something, and you have this notion that, you know, I think I know how to say something that might be helpful to people, but you never really know until people are actually in there and, you know, interacting with you and going through the things. You never really know if it's going to have the effect that you intend. And so I have been just so thrilled to see what has happened for many of the people in the program. And essentially, the point of it has been to show people that change is not something that has to take a lot of determination and a lot of effort and a lot of stress and a lot of strain. That's how I used to see things. I used to think that if I wanted to change something major in my life, that it took a lot of hard work, and it took a lot of perseverance, a lot of, you know, stick-to-itiveness, and all kinds of things like that. And then even after I came into this whole conversation about the 3 principles, I still had this sense that there was work to be done if I wanted change. For example, one of the things that used to look very real to me in that regard was that if I was going to notice a change in my life in some way, I had to see through my thinking about it. I had to see that it was thought, first of all, and then I somehow had to see through that thinking into something new. So if that makes sense to you, if that sounds familiar, kind of wave your hand if you're on camera. Does that sound familiar? Okay. So one of the things that I started to see over this past year, and is a big focus of what we talk about in Liftoff, is that it's actually not necessary to see that at all. That in actual fact, the way that we're designed as human beings is we're kind of made to change. We're made to grow. We're made to expand the way that we see things. And so all we really have to do is see that. is have a glimpse into how this system that's working is actually working, and that that the only thing that's really required of us, if you will, to kind of help that system work even faster or with more ease, is really knowing that it's there, and not, trying to make change happen through our own, tightly gripped efforts, and also not trying to make change happen by really focusing on our thinking and trying to see through it, or trying to see something as thought. So that was a pretty big revelation for me. And in fact, I really credit that insight with the ability that I've had over the last year to make some pretty major changes in my life. I stopped caring so much about what I saw as thought and what I couldn't see through. So I kind of just set all that off to the side and figured, well, there's going to be stuff that I'll never see through, and that's fine. But, maybe there's something else going on in here, in this system that I've been gifted with as a human being, that can help me with transformation that doesn't depend on my seeing through thinking. So that was a pretty big realization that I had, and it's actually been quite powerful. It's helped me to put less stock in whatever thoughts / feelings that I have, to see them for what they are, which is kind of this vehicle for me to have an experience as a person, but not that they carry much meaning along with them. And I can listen to something else. And the something else that we talk about extensively in Liftoff are these other gifts that we have. Things like inspiration and intuition and a natural creativity that is present in everything that we're doing. So exploring those aspects of being human, I think, has really helped people in the program and helped me to make some major shifts. So I'll use myself as an example. One of the things that has happened so far during the 5 weeks that we've been in this program is that I realized it actually was important for me to share more about my history pre-3 principles. And up until this point, that had looked very scary to me. I had had some discussions with people about my past experiences, and I had done some interviews about it, but I had never really gone into any depth in that regard. And suddenly, when I stopped kind of caring about the scary thoughts I had about that and what that all looked like, it just seemed like such a natural thing for me to do at this point, to take that step and, share more openly with people through releasing a book about my experience. And I have to tell you, I had been weighing that and feeling a bit stuck in it for about 2.5 years. So this is a pretty big thing that occurred when I finally saw, are you really inspired to do that, Mary? Can you kind of ignore anything else that's going on and listen to the inspiration part instead? And I realized, yeah, I actually can do that. So that was a major thing that that has come out of this process of looking at this more closely. I think the other thing that I've realized and that I'd like to convey to you, if you're feeling like you're kind of stuck and not really moving on something that you'd really like to move on, is that that there's a lot less doing involved than we imagine. The conventional conversation around changing our life, you're all familiar with this, is so focused on nose to the grindstone, not giving up, not quitting, being diligent, doing hard work on ourselves, constantly looking at ways we can invest in self-improvement. These are the messages that conventional society is saying to us over and over and over again. We hear it all the time. And what I have seen, and what I think a lot of us have seen, is that none of that is really all that helpful. And in essence, it doesn't look true to me anymore. It looks a lot more like we have this engine that's always working within us, that's always shifting and changing, and is doing 99% of the heavy lifting for us. And all we have to do is kind of see a little bit of that and stop gripping so tightly onto the doing aspect of things. And things can shift very quickly. Another thing that I hear all the time is that change has to take a long time. Can't change overnight. You know, it took you a long time to get to where you are, so it's going to take you a long time to get yourself out of this. And that has not been my experience in this conversation that we're in. And I think sometimes the rapidity of change and transformation can be a bit startling to people, can be almost a bit frightening. I know I went through that experience, and I have at several points in the last 3 years since learning about these principles, where I would feel so differently and I'd have such a different experience of life. Like literally overnight sometimes I'd be like, whoa, what's going on here? This feels really powerful in sort of a scary way. And over time, I've come to see that actually that's how things can work more and more of the time. That we can experience rapid shifts like this because that's how we're made. We aren't made to feel this sense of slogging through things and, everything feeling like such a huge weight. That we're actually designed for ease and much less stress and effort when it comes to transformation. And the whole liftoff idea, what I have done is sort of try to take what this system looks like to me and break it down into pieces. And one of the analogies that I use is, years ago when people were studying how horses galloped, they wanted to see if the hooves were off the ground all at the same time. And they didn't quite have the technology at that time to show them. And finally, they were able to film a horse galloping, and they could slow it down enough to see that, yes, in fact, at one point, all 4 hooves are off the ground at the same time. Well, that's kind of the idea I had, which was, is there a way that I can put this in slow motion so that I can see this more clearly and I can convey this more clearly to people? And so that's what I've tried to do. So I've broken it down into these pieces, inspiration being one piece, what we are called to do, that kind of, listening to our heart and seeing, what that is prompting in us and not dismissing it. That's a big thing. Another piece is intuition and allowing ourselves to take the next step that looks like the right one. And then another piece is creativity, which is an innate part of who we are, and in essence to me looks like what we are made of. And then another part of that is this element of a fearlessness about this, where we can feel so sure of what's happening that if we have any fearful thinking, it doesn't really have to have any effect on what we actually do in the world. So that's kind of how I have broken this apart so that it's a little bit easier, I'm hoping, to see what's going on behind the scenes, and that this is sort of a continual process that's happening over and over and over again all day long, even in the most mundane things in life, not just about things that we deem as big changes. So I'm going to just take a quick look at my notes here. Oh, right. One other thing that I wanted to make sure and say in the beginning here is that if it seems like change is really hard or transformation in some area is really hard, I'd like to ask you a question about that. Like, what if it actually isn't hard? You know, someone who is on this call, or she might have had to jump. Oh, no, she's still there. Sarah said that to me one time. You know, what if you're wrong about that, Mary? What if it's actually easy? And that really helped me to see that things that look hard just look that way sometimes. It doesn't mean that they actually are. It actually might be quite the opposite of that. And so I wanted to make sure and acknowledge Sarah for that, because that was a big piece of this for me as well. So I've been talking for about 15 minutes, so I think I'm going to pause and see if anybody has any comments or questions at this point, things that have come to mind. If so, you can raise your hand if you're on camera, or raise the little hand thingy on Zoom, and I will call on you. So I'm going to pause. I'm watching. Anybody? Oh, Linda. Yes. Hang on. Let me unmute you, Linda. All right. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Mary. Hi, it's good to talk to you in person. And
I know.
I appreciate all your help so far. I'm curious, and this is a question I've had for a long time, about how do you know if something coming from your heart, let's say, if you are having a hard time, if it's really not the right thing. Like, I totally agree that, you know, we've been taught to push through, but sometimes it's just not the right thing. So I'm curious if you have any insight into that.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And I think, there's a couple of things that occurred to me. One is that sometimes something can be right and then it isn't. And that's okay, because, you know, there are times for certain things to come into being, and there are times when it's not the right time for that. And so, for example, I have a computer full of book ideas, but I haven't written all of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of them I started and was like, no, not really into it. Whereas, you know, it did sort of seem like the right thing when I started, and then I was like, I don't really feel like it. And some of the conventional wisdom would be, well, you should just stick to that. You know, you should just keep going. And this may sound strange, but I don't really buy into it anymore because I know that it probably isn't the right time for that. And that maybe at some point it will be the right time for that, but it isn't right now. And that's kind of what happened with the memoir that I just released, where at one point, you know, it seemed like I should do this, like this was the right thing to do. And I kind of started and went, maybe I should do this, but it just, I don't know, it's not feeling good. And so I just set it aside, and I thought to myself, well, if it ever is the right time, I guess I'll know. And suddenly it did seem like the right time. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, I think I've had I've had times where I've been able to tell easier than others, and I certainly have dropped things that didn't feel like they were working. But I think just in relationship to this situation now, I feel like I still feel like I'm trying to find the door, which is a metaphor I use a lot, and I something is I just haven't found the right door, I guess. I don't know. But I still feel this desire, but maybe maybe it's supposed to take a different shape, or, then I start getting into guessing and second guessing, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, I hear that. And what I heard in what you said was that there's a lot of seeking going on. There's a lot of looking, and I can relate to that because I do it too. Where I think I really want an answer to this, and I want it right now.
Okay.
I can't wait. I need this right now. That kind of thing. And that is usually a really good clue that I'm really gripping onto something, and I can sort of metaphorically let go and stop doing that. And that this natural system and momentum that we have will show me something at some point. And just because I have a thought that says I need an answer to this right now does not mean that that's actually true. So did that help a little bit?
It's been a long, yeah. Well, I definitely need to relax a bit on that, yes. But yeah, and it's been like 10 years. So I just feel like I feel like a lot of energy moving forward, and I'm just not sure where to direct it. Maybe that's a better way to describe it. I feel this really intense push. A lot of the things you're saying in Price Like a Girl, I completely resonate with that, and I want to, want to get going. So I will just continue to be with the energy, I guess.
Yeah, I'm actually glad that you're asking about this because I feel like when I look back on things, even way, way, way before Principles anything, I can see plenty of times where things were moving and I didn't know that. There was stuff happening when on the surface I was very, very consumed by a lot of traumatic type thinking, and I was really stressing myself out, and that was kind of my reality. But there was a lot of stuff happening that I just wasn't seeing. And so even when things look like they are taking a long time, I think it's mostly because we just can't see what's happening. And I don't think that we're kind of meant to see all
what's
of that.
Really happening.
So it can just be that our perception is thought-based, and it's not necessarily that nothing is changing. It's that we're not necessarily seeing that it's changing. So things can look like in other words, things can look like things can look like we're stuck, but that's actually not what's going on.
Okay,
cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Okay, anybody else? So nice to see everybody. Anybody else have a question or a comment or something that you are feeling stuck in yourself that you'd like some changes around, and how we might be able to do that? Oh, Mitsui in Japan, who is awake at 2:30 in the morning. Hey, Mits.
This might be related to Linda's question, but I want to know what you think about resistance. Now, recently I've been hearing you have resistance about that. Maybe it's something that you need to think about a little more, or as you mentioned before, push through. Now, where does that come from? And when should we see that resistance as resistance?
Okay.
And not as being like lazy, or not as being like, if you actually get to it, you can do it, sort of. I'm not saying this correctly.
No, I think I get what you're saying. I mean, what I heard was, what is resistance and when should we pay attention to it and kind of do what it's saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Or when should we ignore it? And I kind of make this really simple, which is that I'm free to ignore any feeling that I have because it's all coming from the same place. It's all coming from momentary thought. And honestly, I don't know if this will make sense to you guys, but I'll try to say this as best I can. That there's a big, big difference to me between a feeling like that, like resistance, and a feeling like inspiration. They are in me, and some of us have talked about this in the group, these feelings have a different sensation, almost like a different bodily sensation. And when I have a feeling of resistance, I just kind of don't pay attention to it very much. I'm more likely to, like I was saying earlier, if I'm trying to push through something, that's more of like, oh, I don't like that. I don't need to go there. Like, I don't even want to go there. So if I feel like something resistance, I just kind of don't go there because I don't have to. I can listen to something else. I can respond to something else. And I think we have this tendency to believe that feelings like resistance are giving us important information. And that isn't how it looks to me anymore. It looks to me like they all are just kind of there. All these thoughts and feelings are kind of there. And sometimes I listen to them and sometimes I don't. But underneath all of that is something much greater that I can be listening for. And I don't have to wrestle with anything like resistance anymore. I can kind of go, oh, right. I'm feeling a little bit of that. Okay. And not really get like embroiled in it and try to figure out what it's trying to tell me. Because I don't really think it's trying to tell me anything. For instance, if I battled with resistance or tried to figure it out, I would never write anything because I have lots of resistant thinking when I sit down. I spent most of today writing in a new book that I'm putting together, and I was hearing resistance all over the place. It was like, oh, you can't say it like that. Oh, don't write it like that. Oh, this is bad. You shouldn't be doing this. And I had to pause at one time and go, wow, it's really good that I'm not paying attention to this, or I would never do anything. I would be completely shut off from doing anything. It would sort of paralyze me. So I kind of just don't worry about that stuff anymore. It seems like a futile effort to try to parse out what it means because it ultimately doesn't look very meaningful to me at all. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I'd like to hear what you heard in that.
I don't know. Isn't it sometimes those sometimes a warning to tell you how to move in society, or like if you are able to sense what's going on in the room, or understand that someone is feeling not right about something, or
if I am listening to something within myself, I don't really worry about that because whatever someone else is feeling isn't me. I'm not doing anything to them. Society isn't doing anything to me either. Anything that I experience is coming from me. And so I don't really worry anymore about what quote unquote looks right or wrong or anything, at least not consciously. I'm sure there's a lot of thought behind the scenes that I'm not aware of that's influencing me. So I don't want it to sound like you know, I've got this completely wired, because I don't. But more and more of the time, I'm listening to what I see as the bigger voice, if you will, which has nothing to do with thought and thoughts about what someone expects of me or
So
things like that.
you're saying that it pretty much overrides all of the rules. It pretty much overrides things and makes things okay. And
Because
it's
there
not.
aren't any rules. All the rules are made up. They're thought.
Mm.
And if you start to see life from that perspective, if you start to realize that actually there aren't any rules at all, it's amazing how much you can begin to do from that understanding, from realizing that any rule or limit that you see is an illusion. It doesn't exist. It can't exist, because we as humans are not confined. It's not possible for us to be confined in any way. So anytime we see something that looks like a confinement, it's not real. It can't be real. Because you can't contain something that's uncontainable. And we are not, you can't contain something that's infinite.
Yeah, I think I see the futileness of resistance and giving it voice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I feel like I got a glimpse of that.
Good.
Now it's gone.
Yeah, but, it's just one of these things where each one of us, everybody, has a certain set of thoughts that tend to repeat, right? Wave your hand if you have a certain set of thoughts that you hear over, right? Sarah's holding up both hands. That's just the way that it is. I don't know why. That's way past my understanding. I don't know why that's the truth, but that's the truth. Mm. But that doesn't mean that those thoughts are actually important for us to grapple with in any way at all. We can look at them and go, yeah, I hear you. Thanks for sharing. But I'm not interested. I'm going to just keep doing my thing. So whenever I feel myself consciously grappling with something like that, I just kind of go, whoa, don't need to go there. Don't need to do that. That's not helpful to me. So that would be my suggestion, is to kind of, if you feel yourself headed down that path, just kind of go, oh, wait, I don't need to go there. That's not going to be all that useful. Thanks for asking that, because that's a common question that people have.
Yes.
So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Sure. Okay. Who's next? Anybody have something to add? Oh, hi. Hey, Ellie, how are you? You're unmuted.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Hi. So I love the idea. I'm someone who's tried hard. I think I've tried too hard often with lots of things, especially inside my business. I'm just wondering kind of either how or how to develop you said the one thing you need is the belief that the system's there, and I don't know, maybe I don't believe it enough, or I'm not clear about it enough.
You're kind of breaking up a little bit, but what I heard you say is that
So just wanted to know that.
you're not sure you believe in this enough, maybe, or aren't sure that it's real.
Yeah, I kind of do, and then I don't.
Okay, no, that's good. So this is something that I talk a lot about in Liftoff, because it's been huge for me and it seems to be helpful, which is that this isn't really a matter of belief, and it isn't even really a matter of to what degree you see it. It's more about, as I've described it, looking for evidence of it in everything. And that has been very helpful to me. I don't have to believe that gravity exists because it just exists. Like, that's a fact. And I see this as fact. But it does help me to get a sense of gravity if I drop something. Like, oh, hey, look, there it is in action. Like, I can actually see it. And what I try to do throughout the 8 weeks is help people to look for evidence of this system. So, for example, if you wanted to try this for yourself, you could spend a day looking at all of the ways that you are innately creative. And it can be anything from, making the effortless decision to make food for yourself and what kind you're going to make, to having a wonderful coaching conversation with somebody, to creating an amazing experience with your kids, to anything. And once you start to see yourself from this vantage point of a being that is constantly in transformative creation mode, you start to see that it's available to you all the time and can be utilized in any way that you want. So I'll stop there and see what that did.
No, I really like the looking for evidence thing. I think that's the key.
Mm-hmm. Because I'm inherently skeptical.
After a coaching client. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, even when I first started to get the principles a little bit, I was constantly testing it to see, is this really right? And I just kept looking for evidence of things. And I would, see myself in various situations, and I'd say, okay, well, I'm in the same situation, but I'm feeling very different today. Why is that? And it started to become clearer to me that, oh, yeah, this thought thing is actually true. And it's the same with this. When I started looking even at my whole life, not just recently, but my whole life, I could see many, many times where I was kind of the conduit for some sort of creation that I wasn't even aware was happening. And I think that's an important piece of this too. It's kind of like what I was saying at the beginning, where we assume that we are the agent of change. But in actuality, we're kind of the receptacle of change. We are the change. That the doing is being done. It's not that we have to do so much, if that makes sense. And looking for evidence like that really helps you to see this and kind of relax about all these things that we want to change. Did that elucidate things a bit more?
Yeah, it did. At the same time, I was having these thoughts of, what about things you do have to work hard at? If you want to work out, and you want to, you've got to push yourself to your limit. And I don't know, that's just what was going on in my head at the time. And then I'm thinking, no, that's okay. Just leave that stuff. Who cares about that stuff?
Yeah, basically. Because, I love that phrase though, push you to your limit. We were just saying there is no limit, right? So, we have so much available to us that the idea of pushing anything starts to look a little weird. It's like pushing water downstream. Like, why would I ever have to do that? It's already moving. Why would I have to get in there and try to push it? That just seems like a lot of wasted effort.
But there is like another area maybe where, if you want to there is an element of, if you want to become a faster runner, you need to do kind of hill repeats, or actually there's actually two views to it. One of the views is that you just have to run steady and not that fast actually. But the other view is that, and most people do the other way, which they push themselves really hard for some of the time. But I don't know.
Well, not.
And then I guess the other thing is, sorry to interrupt,
Okay.
like my area is in the business, and I keep on meeting people who basically say, entrepreneurial and business success is all about like killing yourself, and working 100 hours a week, and and eventually then you'll be able to relax, but ultimately it's about working really, 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 really hard all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to negate that. Like, I'll do it if I have to, but I'd rather do it the other way.
Gee, let me see. Which would I rather do? Work myself to death and then try to enjoy it, or not work myself to death? I mean,
yeah, ultimately, what I really want is the result. So, if I can get it this way.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you said that, because what are we all after, right? We're all after a certain result. So there's a couple of things there. One is we think we know what we have to do to get that result. And I'm saying we don't. We don't know what's required to get that result, A, and B, we don't even know if that result is what we're supposed to be doing. So we're kind of tying ourselves up in knots before we even get started. So there's another way I'm suggesting to live, essentially. And that's living from a place of inspiration, of listening for that, following that, rather than assuming that I know where I'm supposed to go and how I'm supposed to get there and how it's supposed to look and how I'm supposed to blah, blah, blah. This first year and 3 months that I've been in business for myself has probably been the least stressful time of my life that I can remember. And on top of that, I moved countries, and my father-in-law passed away, and a lot of other stuff happened. And yet I don't feel any worse for the wear at all for any of that. And that's a very new experience, because I pushed myself a lot before that to get things done and to try to establish something. And it wasn't until I kind of just stopped doing all that things actually started to happen a lot faster.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thanks for asking. All right. Anybody else? We have about 15 minutes left. One thing I want to mention before I forget is that I am offering Liftoff again. It starts July 10th, and I'm keeping the price the same through the 22nd, and then it will go up a few $100s after that. So if you're interested, I'd love to have a chat with you. If you're, wondering if it's right for you, I'm happy to have a complimentary call. So please don't hesitate to get in touch with me about that. And I'd also like to add in a complimentary call during the program if you sign up before the 22nd. My birthday is the 21st, so this is kind of in celebration of my birthday. I want to give some more. So that's part of my gift to you and to myself as well. So just know that that offer is out there. If you want to chat about the program, I'm happy to do that. So who else has something they would like to say? I'm looking at Verena or Susan or Rebecca, Sarah, Anna Greta, Lori. Come on, Lori, you always have something to say. Lori and I have known each other a long time, so I can kid her. Okay, Lori finally decided to say something. All right. Okay.
Wants to say something, but can you hear him without the headset on?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, Aaron.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, back to working yourself to death. Yeah, we've all done that. The thing is, what I like tell my clients and stuff is to implement what I call a 70% rule, where you're not working kind of like halfway at 50%, but you're trying more, but you're not trying or striving to the extent where you're killing yourself. You're only doing like up to 70%. And what that will do is give you long-term sustainable improvement over time, over years. So let's say you just started implementing this 70%. You become less stressed if you're working too hard. Cut back a bit and then concentrate on the important things that need to be done. And that's another discussion on what needs to be done. But if you're forced to by your employer, if you're in that type of situation. But the thing is, that gives long-term growth over a lifetime. And so maybe in a month, the 70% then was actually, if you look at it back, when you started, would have been like 72%. And then in a year, your 70% would be, I don't know, maybe when you first started, it would have been 80%. And the thing is that you can accomplish more and more and more without, with actually trying less. You become more efficient over time, but it's not even like a trying. It's kind of like an allowing, just noticing things coming in and allowing and seeing what suits you the best. And then you can go that way if you so choose. And that's kind of how I see it, where it's a soft try instead of a hard try.
Yeah, I think where I came together with you there was I advocate doing a whole lot less than you think.
Yeah.
Like I have no way of measuring percentages and things like that. That doesn't really help me much, but it might help other people. For me, it's more like when I start to feel kind of frantic or any sensation like that, I know, as Sarah often reminds me, it's time for me to read my own book and take a time out. She's like, do you ever read your own book? Do you know what you say in there? And so, yeah, so I have found that, like, for example, over the past week or so, I purposely stopped doing a lot of things that I had been doing. And as a result of that, I saw a whole lot more opportunity in front of me that I'm sure had been there the whole time. But I just was not even looking. Like, I couldn't see it at all. And so it seems like the less, I know this sounds so weird to say, but the less we do, the more is possible. The less we feel like we have to grab the bull by the horns and put our nose to the grindstone and all that, the less we pay attention to that and the less we obey it, the more seems to happen and the faster it seems to happen. I've been actually really surprised at how quickly things have shifted for me in my work and in my life. And yes, I have done things. I have written books and I've coached people and things like that, but it has not seemed hard. And the times when it has seemed hard, I've been like, oh, wow, I'm really like confused right now. It's okay for me to take a few days off if I need to and just kind of wait for this natural system to kind of kick in again, for me to notice that again. So does that kind of jive with what you're saying, Eric?
Yeah, I was just using percentages because, like, when you get above 70%, you start to stress out.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see what you mean. Yeah.
It almost, and then it goes back to the intuition and the instinct part, to where, you really shouldn't be pushing this hard, or you might be pushing in a direction that really doesn't suit you. hence it's not on the path of inspiration.
Yeah.
Because the instinct and it's my opinion that instinct and intuition will always jive together if you are on the path of inspiration, because it's more of a pulling and a draw instead of a push.
Pushing that, I totally hear that. And what I would love to say, thank you for saying that. One of the things I would really like to drive home, if I can, is that so many of us do this, where we hear something within ourselves that's calling to us, and we either dismiss it out of hand, or we question it, or we try to analyze it, or we try to dissect it and figure out whether it's right or wrong or good or bad. We think that it's, it's frivolous or whatever. And it doesn't look that way to me at all. That's how I used to see it. I used to see those kinds of yearnings and callings and desires as frivolous and not important for me to listen to. There were other things I could listen to, like my thinking, And it looks more and more to me like all of that is there as a way for us to feel this incredible power that we are. And that ignoring that is ignoring a tremendous opportunity to connect with what we actually are. And it's also, and I point this out quite explicitly in the program too, it seems to me that that inspiration is there as a way for us to connect with other people and draw them into more close proximity to their true selves. So it doesn't look frivolous to me at all. It looks like it's there for a really important reason. So thank you for prompting me to talk about that. Does that make sense to people, what I just said? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Thanks, Erin. Did Lori want to say anything, or should I put you back on mute?
You can put us on mute.
Okay. All right. Anybody else inspired to say anything or ask a question? I have to say that I have done a lot of really rewarding work in this last year or so, and I feel like this particular way of talking about this has, for whatever reason, been hugely helpful to me and has been helpful to other people. And so I don't know if I just got lucky or I just was able to sort of see something clearly and then express it clearly, but I'm very grateful to see it the way that I do. And I am constantly excited by the fact that this is a continual process for us, that we can see something clearly and realize that, wow, I can see this even more if I just keep looking in this direction. Like, it's a never-ending, beautiful journey that we're on. So it's not like, I've seen it all and this is how it looks, and if you get this, then you'll get it. It's not like that. I saw very clearly as I participate in this program with the participants that I'm seeing more, and I'm, learning more about how I operate as a human and how life can be even easier than it is for me currently in all aspects of life. So that is just a tremendously exciting piece of this. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but I just find it amazing that I can keep exploring forever and know that it will continually show me things. And it can get overwhelming sometimes. It's like, we're infinite and we'll never be able to see all of what we are, but it sure is fun trying. It's really fun, and to keep looking at ourselves in this way. Does anybody have any questions about the program at all and kind of what we do in there or anything like that? It's a pretty straightforward kind of thing. where every week I have a video lesson and kind of an audio meditation, and I give homework, and people report back in a private Facebook group on the homework. We have group calls every other week, so we have 4 calls over the 8 weeks. They're an hour and a half each. And then the people who have opted to have the one-to-one support have 6 hours, although I said through next, the 22nd, I'll make it 7. And if somebody just opts for the group without one-to-one, I will give a one-on-one call in there as well. So really, it hasn't, it's really been a matter of people's preference, whether they want to have some additional support from me or not. And to be honest, it hasn't really seemed to impact people's quote unquote results. But it has been fun to have the one-on-one calls with people. I have to say, I find that really exciting. I like those. So any other points people would like to make? Oh, Sarah, hang on.
Hey, I'm just going to support some of the answers that you gave and maybe highlight it in a different way. You know, when you, so we've all had questions like Linda had and like Ellie had about, you know, how do I know? How do I know what's the right thing to follow up on? For, you know, it's my idea, but I'm not sure if that's the right thing. Or, you know, kind of how do I know in terms of what's the best way to go about things? Should I give it a lot of effort and really go for it, or should I just let it unfold? And if you have these questions, this is a great program for you, because what you're going to be learning about is how to hear that, how to tune in to that in your own specific way, right? So it's not, Mary's not going to offer you a set of rules from now on, do it like this, but she's going to give you the opportunity to hear it for yourself in a way that is so much clearer for you. Mm-hmm. And it will be different from everybody else, but it will be very specific to you. So I just wanted to say that, because that's the most fascinating thing for me, is how, you know, insights and kind of inner direction shows up for each of us in our specific way. And we can learn to hear it and hear the language that it speaks to us in. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I'm glad you said that, because that's been pretty fascinating, you know, in the Facebook group, hearing people's different experiences and how they are listening to themselves and what they're hearing and how it occurs to them. It's been really fun, because you're right, every single person has a different way of hearing it and then expressing it. Another thing that has been really interesting, and Joanne, who's in the program, she was on this call earlier, but what's been really interesting for us is how people will say, oh, you know, not much has changed really, but I've done this, this, and this, and this, you know, but that doesn't seem like a big deal. And we all just sit around going, what? Like your entire life just changed. That doesn't seem like a big deal. It's been really funny, because what starts to happen, and this is why I'm mentioning it, is that people start to see change and transformation and shifting as normal. It starts to look matter of fact. It starts to look like, oh, well, of course, because this is how I operate. This doesn't have to be this
comes
big
from
deal.
them. Yeah, it comes from them in their way.
That's
and
right.
So it feels really natural.
It's just natural. It's no big deal. But to people on the outside, it's like, whoa, what just happened? Like, are you even the same person that you were on the last call? Because you don't look like that anymore. You don't sound like that. But the person themselves, like you said, is just starting to be able to really tune in to what's going on, and it starts to feel very normal to them. So this doesn't have to be like, oh, it's 8 weeks of this program, and then after that, I'm not going to have this anymore. It's not like that. It's not like that at all. So thanks, Sarah. That was helpful. All righty. We are about at our 1 hour. So I want to thank you all for being here. And again, if you would like to chat with me about liftoff to see if it's right for you, I will share a way for you to set up a call when I send out this recording. And I would love to chat with you about it. It's been a really fun experience for us so far, the 8 of us and myself, 9 of us in there. And I can't wait to run it again starting July 10th. So I hope you'll consider it and just have a great time with discovering what's really happening behind the scenes and how much fun it can be to change things. It doesn't have to be such a hard slog like we think it does. So thanks everybody for being here. I love you all, and I will talk to you again soon. Enjoy the rest of your evening, day. Mitsui, go to bed. I'll see you all soon. Bye.